Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I commute to the same office for 3 years now. The drive is fine except for one intersection where I make a left turn. Every workday the line backs up at least half a mile. In bad traffic, you wait 15 minutes, and on a good day, still about 10 minutes. I wouldn't mind waiting if everyone followed rules, but daily I watch impatient drivers decide their time matters more than others. They speed past the waiting cars in the straight lane, then force their way into the turn lane at the last second. It's not just annoying, it's dangerous. Last Monday was frustrating. I was almost at the intersection after waiting in line for 12 minutes when I saw a luxury SUV speeding up behind me. They were in the straight lane but clearly not planning to go straight. When they reached my car, they started merging into me without a turn signal. I honked my horn to alert the driver, but they didn't care. The driver didn't look at me. They kept pushing their vehicle into my lane, forcing me to brake hard and swerve to avoid a crash. I saw the driver, a middle-aged man in sunglasses, blank-faced as he nearly caused an accident. I yelled in my car, asking if he was kidding and telling him he almost hit me. He couldn't hear me and probably wouldn't have cared if he could. He slipped in front of me, cutting my safety distance in half. I was angry the whole way to work. These drivers think rules don't apply to them, and they never face any results. 3 days later, I was at the same intersection, same turn lane. Traffic moved slower than usual, and I had waited about 14 minutes. I was second in line when the light changed to yellow. I would have to wait through another cycle. While waiting, I watched my mirror, still wary after Monday's close call. I noticed a mid-sized sedan speeding up the straight lane and knew what would happen. Without slowing, signaling, or looking, the sedan driver started merging into the pickup truck behind me. The truck had nowhere to move. There was a concrete divider on the other side. I heard metal and plastic crunch, followed by honking. The woman in the sedan stopped because she hit the truck. The impact knocked off her side mirror. I put my car in park since we weren't moving and watched what happened. The truck driver, a construction worker in a high-visibility vest, got out looking confused and angry. He asked what happened and said she drove straight into him. The sedan driver got out too. She was well dressed with an expensive handbag and sunglasses. She pulled out her phone and started recording the truck driver. She blamed him for hitting her car and pointed at her damaged mirror. The truck driver told her he was stopped the whole time and that she merged without looking. The woman said she had her turn signal on and he should have let her in. She said it was his fault and claimed to have witnesses pointing behind her, though nobody backed her story. Her voice had that entitled tone that made me angry. This was the same behavior that almost caused my crash days earlier. I decided to get involved. I put my hazard lights on and got out. I told the woman I saw everything and that she didn't use her signal or look before merging. The woman turned her phone to record me and asked who I was. She told me to mind my business. I told her I was right in front of the truck and saw everything in my mirror. I said she came speeding up the straight lane and tried to cut in without looking. She called me a liar and said the truck driver had room to let her in. She complained that truck drivers think they own the road. The truck driver thanked me for stopping and said this wasn't the first time someone tried this. I gave the truck driver my number. I offered to tell the police or his insurance what I saw. I mentioned how often this happens at this intersection. The woman looked less confident and suggested they forget about it and move on, saying the damage wasn't bad. The truck driver refused, saying she hit him, then tried to blame him. He said they would wait for police. The woman went back to her car. I went back to mine after nodding to the truck driver. The next day, the truck driver's insurance company called me. I told them what happened, how the woman sped up the straight lane, never signaled, never looked, and merged into the stopped truck. I explained how she blamed the truck driver and tried to intimidate him by recording him. The insurance person thanked me for the information. I don't know what happened after, but I think the woman's insurance rates went up. It wasn't the same person who nearly hit me earlier that week, but it felt good to see one of these drivers who think their time matters more than safety get what they deserved. Maybe next time she'll wait in line like everyone else. My son is 7 years old and obsessed with Batman. He sleeps in Batman pajamas, watches every Batman cartoon he can find, and tries to make his voice deep and raspy when playing superhero. As a single parent, I work hard to give him everything I can, and when one of his classmates invited him to a superhero-themed birthday party, I got him the best Batman costume I could afford. My boy was excited. He tried the costume on every day for a week before the party. The cape was his favorite part. He'd run around our small apartment, arms spread wide, making whooshing noises as he pretended to glide between buildings. Being Batman meant everything to him. The day of the party arrived and my son wanted to show off his costume to his friends. When we got to the birthday kid's house, the yard was decorated with superhero balloons, and there was a beautiful cake with various superhero logos on it. Kids were running around in all sorts of costumes: Spider-Man, Wonder Woman, Captain America, you name it. We weren't there for more than 15 minutes when I noticed another Batman. The kid was about the same age as my son, and they were both wearing similar costumes. My son, being friendly, ran over to the other Batman. My son told the other kid that they were both Batman and suggested they could fight crime together. The other kid seemed excited too, but then I noticed a woman watching them with a scowl on her face. She was tall with that "can I speak to the manager" haircut. She walked over to where the boys were playing. The woman asked why my kid was dressed as Batman. I responded with confusion, saying it was because he loves Batman and it's a superhero party. She asked why I would let him dress as Batman when Batman is white and my son isn't white. She said he should be dressed as someone else. My son, who had been happily playing, suddenly stopped and looked up at us, confused. I told her my son can dress as any superhero he wants and that Batman is his favorite. The woman said it wasn't appropriate, claiming her son was the real Batman and that my kid was confusing everyone. By this point, other parents were starting to notice. The birthday kid's mother came over. The birthday kid's mom asked if everything was okay. Before I could answer, the woman pointed at my son and told the birthday kid's mom to tell me that my kid couldn't be Batman. She said her son was Batman and pointed out that he looked like Bruce Wayne. The birthday kid's mom said everyone was invited to come as whatever superhero they wanted, and there was no problem with having two Batmans. I tried to suggest our sons could be Batman from different universes or timelines, but the woman wasn't having it. What happened next still shocks me. The woman grabbed my son's cape and yanked it, causing him to stumble backward and fall. My son started crying more from shock than pain. I asked what was wrong with her and told her not to touch my child. I rushed to comfort my son while the birthday kid's mom stood between us and the woman. The birthday kid's mom told the woman she needed to leave now and that her behavior was unacceptable. The woman said the party was stupid anyway and called for her son to come with her. She grabbed her son's arm, who looked mortified and confused. As they were walking out, she suddenly turned and swept her arm across the table with the cake and snacks, sending everything crashing to the floor. The cake splattered across the patio while kids screamed and parents gasped. The woman yelled that now nobody would get to have Batman. She stormed out, dragging her son behind her. The birthday kid was in tears, other children were upset, and my son was still sniffling from being pushed. The birthday kid's parents called the police, and several of us gave statements about what happened. They took photos of the destroyed cake and decorations, and of the small bruise forming on my son's arm where he'd fallen. Later that day, I got a call from the police saying they'd arrested the woman at her home. When they showed up, she'd tried to claim that I had assaulted her first, but too many witnesses had seen what really happened. She was charged with assault on a minor and destruction of property. The birthday kid's mom told me that the woman's son kept apologizing for his mother's behavior while they were leaving. The parents of the birthday child were amazing. They quickly ordered pizzas and ice cream to replace the destroyed cake, and all the kids rallied around my son, telling him he was a real Batman because he was brave. By the end of the party, he was smiling again. I later found out that this wasn't her first run-in with the law, but it might be her most expensive one yet. The birthday kid's parents are suing her for damages and she's facing charges for putting her hands on my child. My son still loves Batman, maybe even more now. We've had some tough conversations about why some people act the way they do, but I've made sure he knows that heroes come in all colors and from all backgrounds. That's what makes them super. I realized in 4th grade that being pushed too far can bring out sides of yourself you never knew existed. It started when I broke my arm falling off the monkey bars at recess. Most kids were nice about it, offering to carry my books or help me with things that required 2 hands. Most kids, except him, my 4th grade tormentor. He was the type who'd see a weakness and pounce on it like a predator. My cast might as well have been a bright neon sign saying target practice. The worst part wasn't even him, it was how our math teacher treated him like he walked on water. I still remember the way she'd beam at him when he'd answer a question correctly, like he was some kind of prodigy. Meanwhile, I'd be struggling to write with my non-dominant hand, and she'd roll her eyes if I asked for help. For some reason, she kept forcing me to help him with his math work. She would tell me I needed to share my talents, completely ignoring the fact that he'd just called me a one-armed freak, quiet enough that only I could hear. I once politely asked her if I could help someone else instead, explaining that we didn't work well together. She told me my attitude wasn't very Christian and that everyone deserved help. When I tried to explain that he was making fun of my caste, she said I was exaggerating and that he was a good boy. That's how most of our interactions went. I tried to explain what was happening, and she'd dismiss me. The worst was when I'd stand up for myself or for the other kids he'd terrorized. Her face would go all pinched, and she'd look at me like I was something nasty she'd stepped in. She would scold me for causing trouble again. Then she'd drop her voice and tell me that the devil works through children too. Being called the devil by your teacher when you're 9 years old stings, especially since I came from a Jewish household, and this felt like she was targeting me for that too, though she'd never say it outright. Things came to a head during gym class. We were playing dodgeball, and I was an easy target with my cast. He kept aiming for me, even though the gym teacher had said to take it easy on me. After getting pegged in the back for the 3rd time, I confronted him. I shouted at him to stop targeting me, saying it wasn't fair. He called me devil boy and asked what I was going to do about it. That's when he shoved me. Hard. I stumbled backward and fell. The gym teacher was dealing with another student who'd gotten hit in the face, so he didn't see. My tormentor shoved me again when I tried to get up. He told me to stay down where I belonged. Something in me snapped. All the months of bullying, all the times the math teacher had sided with him, all the names I'd been called. It bubbled up inside me. When he came to shove me a 3rd time, I swung my cast at him. I wanted him to feel a fraction of the pain he'd caused me. My cast connected with his shin, and he howled. I was about to swing again when the gym teacher grabbed me from behind. The gym teacher asked what I was doing and sent me to the principal's office. Word got back to my math teacher before I returned to class the next day. She was livid. She told me she knew there was darkness in me and that only the devil would attack someone like that. When I said he had pushed me first, multiple times, she said I was telling more lies and was disappointed in me. That's when I decided if she was going to call me the devil, I might as well earn the title. For the next 2 weeks, I researched every psychic hotline, every tarot card reading service, every medium who claimed to speak to the dead. I found them all. I made a list, checking each website to make sure they had a sign up for more information option. Then, using the school directory that listed all the teachers' emails, I signed her up for every single one of these services using her school email address. Dozens of them. I checked the boxes for daily readings and urgent spiritual messages. I never mentioned it to anyone. I just waited. About a week later, I noticed her checking her email during class. Her face went from confused to horrified as she scrolled through subject lines like, "Your urgent tarot reading and spirits trying to contact you now." She started looking frazzled in class, jumpy. Her normally perfectly styled hair had loose strands sticking out. I heard her in the hallway telling another teacher about being spiritually attacked through her email. The school had to implement new email protocols for all teachers because of the suspicious activity targeting staff emails. There was a whole assembly about internet safety that I sat through with the most innocent expression. After that, I changed my approach with both her and my bully. I became sweet to her, smiling whenever she looked my way. I would offer to help her with classroom chores, like emptying the trash. She couldn't figure out if I was mocking her or if I had suddenly reformed. As for my bully, I continued to help him with math as she insisted, but now I gave him wrong information. Just subtle enough that it wouldn't be obvious I was sabotaging him, but significant enough that his grades started slipping. He would complain to me that he didn't understand why he was getting problems wrong, saying that I had told him to multiply at a certain point. I would apologize, claiming I must have misspoken and that he was supposed to divide. By the end of the year, his math grade had dropped from an A to a C, and my math teacher jumped every time her computer made a notification sound. I remember how she looked the last time I saw her, constantly checking over her shoulder, and I smile. Maybe she was right about one thing. The devil really was in her classroom that year. I grew up in a traditional South Asian household, but we moved to the States when I was about to start high school. Back home, my heritage was something to be proud of. In America, it made me a target. My mother kept our cultural practices alive as we adapted to American life. Every weekend, she'd sit me down for our hair oiling session. She parted my hair and massaged coconut oil deep into my scalp, working it through to the ends. She would tell me this was how our family kept their hair strong for generations. The oil would stay in my hair overnight, sometimes longer. By Monday morning, despite washing, there'd still be a slight sheen to my hair. I didn't notice it much until my bully would loudly call me oil slick to his friends. His friends would laugh and I'd keep my head down trying to be invisible. He would make sizzling sounds and joke that someone could fry an egg on my head. When I asked him to leave me alone, he would hold his nose and ask his friends if they could smell what he called a curry factory explosion. Every day was the same. I'd come home and beg my mother to stop the oil treatments. I told her everyone made fun of me and asked if we could skip the treatments for a while. My mother would call me beta and explain that the other kids didn't understand our ways. She would tell me this oil was why my grandfather still had a full head of hair at 75 and that American boys would be bald by 40. I didn't believe her. I just wanted to fit in. Sometimes I'd try to wash the oil out thoroughly, scrubbing until my scalp hurt. Other times I'd wear hats until teachers forced me to remove them. Nothing worked. The bullying continued throughout high school, and I grew to resent my culture and those oil treatments. After graduation, I went to college across the country. Free from both my bully and my mother's oil rituals, I used American hair care products. I used whatever made my hair look normal. For years, I avoided anything connected to my cultural roots. In my early 30s, I've been dealing with health issues and decided to try holistic remedies. I began using some Ayurvedic practices, my overall health improved, and my hair became thicker and shinier. I went all in, herbs, oils, the whole regimen. The things I once hated became my secret weapons. One night, while scrolling through social media, a familiar face appeared in my People You May Know section. It was my high school tormentor. I clicked on his profile. His hairline had receded dramatically, forming what looked like a McDonald's arch. His attempts to cover it with a comb-over made it more noticeable. His photos were carefully angled, but his insecurity was obvious. I scrolled through his profile, seeing how he kept touching his thinning hair in photos, always wearing hats and casual shots. In one post, he was asking followers for hair loss treatment suggestions. The comments were filled with sympathetic responses. The years of humiliation came rushing back. I did some digging and found his address. I put together a package of my favorite Ayurvedic hair products, the coconut oil my mother used, plus the herbal remedies I'd found in my 30s. I added a note that read, "Better oily than bald." I sent it anonymously, just a small revenge for years of torment. A month later, he posted about trying some traditional remedies for his hair loss. 3 months after that, he posted a progress photo showing slight improvements at his hairline. He never mentioned receiving a package, but there was a bottle of coconut oil visible in one of his bathroom selfies. I felt vindicated and amused. The very thing he had mocked me for could now help him. My mother had been right about American boys being bold by 40. After spending years trying to escape my culture, I'd come full circle and found confidence in the traditions I once resented. Meanwhile, the person who had made me feel like an outsider was now using the same remedies. I don't know if he'll ever connect oil slick from high school with his anonymous benefactor. But when I massage oil into my thick hair, I smile thinking of him doing the same, finally understanding what my mother knew all along. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.